Mr. Wadel, let me shift gears a little bit and look at your testimony in a little different way if I could, okay?
All right.
Sometime during 2009, you returned from Texas to Missouri, and at that point when you returned, you were looking for a job, correct?
Yes.
And you reunited yourself with family members, including your Uncle Lonnie, correct?
Yes.
And sometime during August, September, you were introduced to Billy Barger in a sense that he would be a potential employer.
Yes.
And at that time, you said you knew Mr. Barger from once before, correct?
Yeah, I've seen him once before that.
And where was it you had seen him the time before?
Phil Lasaro's tattoo shop.
And he, at that point in time, had conversation with you?
No.
Mr. Barger? No. Was Kim Hunter there at that time?
Yes.
And at that point in time, you at some point were offered a job to go work in his dish business, cell phone business, correct?
After that, yes.
That was September 2009 or so?
Yes.
And that involved installing dish satellite TV.
And involved in installing a dish network in people's homes.
Okay. And at that point in time, you were living where?
I was living with my parents at the time.
And that was in Foster?
Yes.
And how far from Nevada was that?
33 miles?
Did Mr. Barger have an office or a shop in Nevada?
No.
Where did you operate the business out of at that time?
It was out of Adrian, Missouri.
I see. And where's Adrian in regard to Foster?
It's to the north.
How many miles?
About the same distance.
And you had to go to various locations to make these installations, correct?
Yes.
Now, did Mr. Barger pay you a normal wage?
No.
How much were you paid to work for him?
I only got paid once.
And when was that?
That was when I first started working for him.
What month?
That was in September.
And you then continued to work for him for how long?
Until I got locked up.
That would have been in January, February? What, I'm sorry, January 2010.
2010.
So for several months, at least 3, right?
Yes.
You worked for nothing?
The only thing he gave me was enough money for gas to get back and forth.
Now, at that time, you didn't work for Mr. Stangeland, did you?
No.
And you didn't work for Uncle Lonnie, did you?
No.
Mr. Barger was the guy you worked for.
Yes.
Did he tell you why you weren't getting paid?
He said that I wasn't getting paid because I wasn't collecting money on stuff that I used.
On stuff you used?
Yeah, on equipment I used
I see.
to install.
And why did you quit?
I don't know.
Were you afraid of him?
He was intimidating. Yes.
Carried a gun, didn't he?
Yes.
You did too, though, didn't you?
Yes.
Sounds like everybody in Missouri carries a gun. Is that pretty much true?
Not necessarily.
In the house, when you go to live in Mr. Stangeland's house, when was that?
That was in November.
And the the gun that was shown to you by Mr. Mueller, the handgun, it's a semi-automatic, correct?
Yes.
A 380?
Yes.
And was that your gun?
One of them was, yes.
Who gave it to you?
My uncle.
Uncle Lonnie?
Yes.
When?
When I first started hanging around with Mr. Stangeland, Billy Barger, and him.
Sometime September of 2009?
Yes.
So you didn't carry a gun before that?
No.
And you said everybody in the household basically had one. Mr. Stangeland had one. Uncle Lonnie had one, Billy Barger carried guns, right?
Yes,
And you?
yes,
Anybody else carry guns?
no,
Did you ever hear Mr. Stangeland refer to his son as Youngblood?
he always referred to him as Derek. Everyone else in the house referred to him as Youngblood.
But Mr. Stangeland called him by his name, correct?
Yes,
Now, when you had this incident occur in the bar with Kim Hunter and Billy Barger, that was an evening, I assume?
yes,
Do you know who ended up paying for all the drinks and food that night?
no,
Do you know whether or not when you got back to the house, Mr. Stangeland's house, right?
yes,
Was Mr. Barger anxious to talk to you?
yes,
And he was angry, correct?
yes,
And angry and threatening?
yes,
And he, at one point in time, pointed a firearm at you?
yes.
Which gun did he point at you?
He pointed Derringer.
And you said that there are two kinds of men who have guns. One's the one who's going to shoot you immediately. The other one is the one who's going to try to intimidate you with it, correct?
Yes,
And at that point in time, when he pointed the Derringer at you, you concluded that he was just trying to intimidate you.
yes,
You were afraid of him though, weren't you?
yes.
You weren't sure he wasn't going to pull that gun or that trigger, were you?
If he was going to pull that trigger, he would have done it without saying nothing.
I see. Is that something from your experience?
I've had many guns pointed at me.
I see. And unless they pull the trigger right away, you're not intimidated by having a gun pointed at you?
I'm a little intimidated.
Did, that same night, did Mr. Barger order your uncle and Mr. Stangeland to hang you over that railing?
Yes,
And do you recall the words he used?
no,
But is there any question in your mind that it was Billy Barger who told them to do that?
no,
No, there's no question.
there's no question.
Wasn't that Mr. Stangeland and your Uncle Lonnie decided they were just going to do that just for the sake of doing it, right?
No,
So they were ordered to do it.
yes,
And there was a lot of times when you lived in that house that there were orders coming from Billy Barger, correct?
yes,
And was there ever any question in your mind when you lived in that house that Billy Barger claimed to be the son of Sonny Barger from the Hells Angels?
yes,
No question, correct?
no,
And wasn't until after you got arrested that you discovered he wasn't the son, am I correct?
yes,
And at that point in time, did that intimidate you at all, the fact that his claim was that his father was Sonny Barger?
yes,
Why?
because he's a very notorious person.
Is it very what?
Notorious person.
Meaning the father, Sonny?
Yes,
But you found out he wasn't the father.
yes,
Were you less intimidated by Billy after you found out he wasn't the father?
yes,
When you were, excuse me. When you were living in the house, was there a time when you indicated Billy would hand out Hells Angels t-shirts to people?
he only did that once.
What was that occasion? What was that?
That was around Halloween,
And what was the reason for that?
to take a picture.
And was that a picture of a group of individuals, including yourself?
Yes,
Who else was in the picture, if you recall?
Mr. Stangeland, Mr. Swearens, Billy, Barger, Kimberly Hunter, Derek, and Jennifer Duff.
And what was your understanding of why that picture was being taken?
Because it was supposed to be the first picture of a new chapter, the Hells Angels.
And at that point in time, did you believe that you were a member of the Hells Angels?
I wasn't a full member, I was just prospecting.
I see. Did you know whether or not any of the other individuals in the picture were actually patched Hells Angels?
I never seen no patches come.
Have you seen that picture?
Yes,
Recently?
Not recently.
Could I either show or touch it?
Do you have a card? No. Yeah, smart board. Let's see.
I think she found it. She found what I need.
She's always faster than I am. So.
I'm going to show you what has been marked in this case as S-158. I ask if you recognize the picture shown in S-158.
Yes.
Is that the picture you just described that was taken somewhere around Halloween 2009?
Yes.
And where are you in the picture?
I'm all the way to, looking at it, I'm all the way to the left.
And
Which be standing in the picture, I'm to the right.
you're wearing a shirt, am I correct?
Yes.
What's the shirt say?
It's a Hell's Angel shirt.
Okay, and is the way that the people in the picture are depicted, is that the way that they were going around the household regularly?
No.
Doug Stangeland's in that picture, correct?
Yes.
Where's he in the picture?
He's all the way to the, he's in the left of the picture.
The opposite end.
Yes.
And he's wearing a jacket of some kind, correct?
He's wearing a vest.
A vest. You know whose vest that was?
No.
You ever see him wear it before that?
No.
How about the thing on his head? You ever seen him wear that before?
No.
Your recollection, did Billy provide the props for this picture?
All the bandanas, everyone had one. But no one ever wore them.
Okay. Who gave them to you?
They were all black.
Well, I'm just, I didn't hear the end of the answer.
They're all bought by each individual.
From Billy?
No.
Oh. You bought one?
Yes. I had several.
Where'd you buy it?
I got mine at Walmart.
Walmart.
Yes.
You, sometime in November of 2009, went to Mr. Scammel's residence, as I understand.
Yes.
And you went there more than once, correct?
Yes.
And the first time you went there, the purpose of going there was to kind of scout the place out, is that correct?
Yes.
And then you went back to take care of the dogs.
Yes.
Did you devise the plan to take the deer meat, mix the antifreeze and the blood pressure pills together yourself?
No.
Where'd you get the blood pressure pills?
They're at my parents' house.
So you got the blood pressure pills? Fair to
Yes.
say? Okay. Where'd the antifreeze come from?
Out of Mr. Stangeland's garage.
I see. Did Mr. Stangeland go in the garage and give it to you?
It was never handed to me.
So did you go in the garage and get the antifreeze?
No.
Someone pick it up, some fashion? How does
Yes.
it end up on me?
The meat was done in a plastic bag, but then the antifreeze was dumped in the garage.
I see. And who dumped the antifreeze in the plastic bag?
I do not recall.
Okay. Was Mr. Stangeland present when that happened?
Yes.
Lonnie Swartz there?
No.
Billy Barger?
Billy was in the house.
With regard to the night that you actually go down to Mr. Scammel's residence, when you go to poison the dogs, that's late at night also?
Yes.
About what time?
Past midnight.
And you put it in a certain location where the dogs would get to it, am I correct?
Yes.
And then you went back and got in the car and went back to Nevada.
Yes.
And the following night, did you return there?
Yes.
And the incident did not occur that night because there were some other people there, correct?
Yes,
Were you with Mr. Stangeland and Mr. Sworns at that point in time?
yes.
Okay. Why didn't it take place that first night?
Because there was other people in the house.
Okay. Did Mr. Stangeland indicate he knew who those people were?
No,
Did you return the following night or another 2 nights later, something like that?
I think the following night.
And at that point, you went there, and you said you were not in the room when the shooting of Mr. Scowl took place, correct?
No,
So would I be fair to say that the only reason you know Doug Stangeland was the one who shot Mr. Scowl was because he said he was?
he also read a statement in Vernon County stating that he was the one that shot him.
Okay? So would it be fair to say that the reason that you know it was him who shot him is because you know that he gave a statement admitting that he shot him?
Yes, and he said he's the one that shot him after the ordeal.
And when was it that you recollect learning that Billy Barger was not the son of Sonny Barger?
After I was already locked up.
And what jail or what place were you at?
I was in Vernon County.
Was that the place that you said where Doug Stangeland gave his statement?
Yes,
That would have been in January 2010.
it had been January 16th, 2010.
I see. Now, you mentioned then that the plan was to go to try to get something from Mr. Scammell, I assume, and that something was money?
It was said that he had money and information where Mr. Muller was.
And when you got there, did you take any money from Mr. Scammell?
No,
Did you get information that you know about the whereabouts of Jeffrey Muller?
no,
And this was all the offshoot of a collection scheme between Billy Barger and Mr. Slates, correct?
yes,
Did you know Roy Slates before that?
no.
Did you ever talk to Roy Slates about this?
I never once talked to Roy Slates.
Were you present when he talked to Billy Barger?
I was present when, with Doug, went to his house and talked about it.
When Billy Barger, Roy Slates, yourself, and Doug were present at his house
Yes,
and talked about collecting the money?
yes,
And at that point in time, Billy had told Doug that he wanted to speak to Slates.
yes,
And he, in fact, Billy had called Slates directly, am I correct?
yes,
Because Doug was saying he wasn't able to get hold of him or something, correct?
yes,
And Billy had Slates come over to the house.
yes.
Were you present when Billy told Slates, after the Scammell incident occurred, that he needed to get money from him?
They took that conversation in the bedroom. I was not included in that conversation.
I see. Did you hear anything about the conversation? Any yelling, screaming, any violence?
No,
No. Okay. With regard to the first time that you came out to go to New Jersey, you said that that was you and Mr. Stangeland, is that correct?
yes,
And you ended up, I think, in Ohio?
no. We made it all the way to PA, and we were in started out in Broomsville, then we made it to Scranton.
I see. And you weren't able to rent a car at that point?
No,
And that was Billy Barger's idea to rent the car?
yes,
And did Doug Stangeland have a credit card?
no. He had a green dot card.
He had a what?
Green dot.
What's that?
It's a prepaid card.
I see. And with regard to Mr. Stangeland, at that point in time, your mission, I understand it would have been terminated and you ended up going back to Missouri.
Yes,
Now, on the day when you come back, the second time that you come back, That's the day you come back with Lonnie, Doug Stangeland, and yourself in Doug's car, correct?
Yes,
And your destination is to go to Mahwah, New Jersey?
no,
Destination is to go to Newton, New Jersey.
yes.
And was there a discussion held before you left Missouri to come to Newton, New Jersey, involving Billy Barger about what the mission was?
Yes.
And what did that consist of?
It consisted of saying there was mention that it might be the wrong person, but Billy said there was no way it was the wrong person because he did the background check, that it was the right person.
And you set out to go to Newton, New Jersey, correct?
Yes,
And you're the passenger in the car?
yes,
And Lonnie's in the back seat at that point in time?
yes,
And Doug is driving?
yes.
Now, several events happen when you get to the state of New Jersey, as I understand it. You're not able to get access to the Jeff Mueller that you were looking for at that point in time, correct?
I wasn't sure which Jeff Mueller that we was actually looking for.
Okay. You had never seen a picture?
I'd never seen a picture of him before.
And on the morning of the day that you're at the parking lot on East Clinton Street and Mr. Mueller shows up, you had been the one that had been chosen to walk over and look into the store to see whether or not there was anyone there? Or is that the day before?
The day before, we were parked down by a parking lot and seen him come out of the store.
I see.
That's the first time I seen him. Then that earlier that day, we was parked across the street, and I was told to walk past the store to see if he was in there, but I didn't know what he looked like.
I see. So you, on the day in question, you are in the car and you're equipped with a handgun, is that
Yes.
correct? Is the handgun in the trunk of the car, in the backpack or knapsack?
That would have been the morning of the 8th. It was in the trunk.
Okay. And you were armed with the taser, basically, correct?
Yes,
Stun gun. It
yes,
was a stun gun, not a taser. Right.
yes.
And who gave you the stun gun?
Billy,
And that would have been back in Missouri before you left?
yes.
And you didn't have a stun gun of your own, am I
No.
correct? Had you ever used one?
No,
Did he give you instructions how to use it, how to make it work?
there's a general purpose on how it works. I knew the general purpose.
And on the day in question, when Mr. Mueller got out of his car on the lower parking lot and walked up toward his store, Lonnie was in the driver's seat of the vehicle, correct?
Yes,
Doug Stangeland was in the passenger seat, correct?
yes,
And you were in the back seat,
yes,
on the passenger side? Driver's side. I see. So when you got out of the motor vehicle, you would have gotten out of the driver's side rear door,
yes,
and Lonnie would have gotten out of the driver's side driver's door.
yes,
Okay. And Doug Stangeland would have been the farthest from the pet store of the occupants of the vehicle when you were in it.
yes,
Now, you have given a description of the events that happened on that particular morning, and you indicated at that point that Lonnie basically approached Mr. Mueller and told him that he was going with you, or going with him. Correct?
yes.
And Mr. Mueller replied in some fashion, no, he wasn't.
He said he wasn't getting in a vehicle with anyone he did not know.
In your statement, you indicated that ultimately there's an altercation between Lonnie and Mr. Mueller, correct?
Yes,
And Mr. Mueller ends up face down on the ground under Lonnie? Is that your recollection?
and in the end, yes.
Okay. And at that point, you get out of the car.
I was already out of the car.
You were already out of the car. Where was Doug Stangeland at that point in time?
He was on the other side of the vehicle.
Did Doug Stangeland at that point, before Mr. Jeffrey Mueller was in the car, did Doug Stangeland ever either punch or kick Jeffrey Mueller?
No,
And he couldn't have because he was on the other side of the car, correct?
yes,
You also indicated in your statement, if I'm correct, that Mr. Mueller ultimately basically gave up and voluntarily went into the car himself?
Yes.
Nobody had to throw him in the car?
No, my uncle was right behind him when he was helping him into the car.
And certainly Doug Stangeland didn't assist him to get into the car.
No,
And in fact, did you see what happened to Doug Stangeland at that point in time?
he got in the driver's seat.
Okay. And where did you get in the vehicle?
I grabbed the briefcase, Mr. Mueller's briefcase off the ground, and I climbed in the passenger side, in the front.
I see. And did you look in the briefcase?
Yes,
What'd you find in the briefcase?
there was paperwork in the briefcase and the laptop.
And did you open up the laptop?
Yes,
And in order to do so, did you need to get passwords?
yes,
Who'd you get the passwords from?
Mr. Mueller.
And in order to get the passwords, what did you or someone have to say to Mr. Mueller to get them?
I just asked him for the passwords.
Did Doug Stangeland ever indicate to Mr. Mueller in your presence that there were people at Mr. Mueller's house that had his family captive?
That was my uncle.
So the question, did Doug Stangeland ever do it?
No.
No. And you didn't either, correct?
No,
Did Doug Stangeland ever threaten to kill Mr. Mueller?
no,
The only one talking about that was your Uncle Lonnie, am I correct?
yes,
You weren't going to kill him, were you?
no.
How far did you get before you realized he was the wrong guy?
We were in Pennsylvania on Route 80. I don't know exactly how far.
Did you ever stop in Clearview, PA?
No,
Did you ever see the cabin?
no,
Who told you about the cabin?
Mr. Barton.
And that would have been back in Missouri when you were first planning to come here?
Yes,
And did you have sleeping bags in the car?
no,
Did you have chains?
no,
Did you have cinder blocks in the car?
no, because we were just supposed to hand them off to someone else.
And that was your understanding that you were to bring him to Clearfield, Pennsylvania,
Yes,
and you would be met by some other individuals, and those individuals would then take it from there to collect whatever money had to be collected.
yes,
And you were on your way back to Missouri at that point? You would have been?
would have been.
But that didn't happen.
No,
And who told you about these other individuals that you would be meeting in Clearfield?
Mr. Barton.
That was part of the original plan, correct?
Yes,
Did you ever see Mr. Barger point a gun at anyone in your presence other than you?
just Mr. Slace once.
And where was that? Where did that take place?
It was in Mr. Stangeland's house.
And when would that have been?
I'm not totally sure.
After the Scammell home invasion, but before the coming to
Yes.
New Jersey? In between?
Probably in between, yes.
And that was about the $10,000 that Billy wanted, correct?
Yes,
And when he pointed the gun at him, what gun was it?
410 Derringer.
Were you present when Billy got physical with Mr. Slates at any time?
No,
What did he say when he pointed the gun at him?
all he says, you're gonna do it. You're gonna get the money. That was after the initial conversation when I was allowed into the room.
I see. When you were hanging over the railing, Uncle Lonnie and Mr. Stangeland are holding you. Was Billy Barger present?
Yes, he was standing on the stairs yelling at me.
And you said it was concrete and it was,
It was carpeted concrete, and
carpeted concrete.
there was a little brick ledge in the corner where a fountain was.
and just like when a man points a gun at you, if he doesn't pull the trigger right away, you didn't expect they were going to drop you, did you?
I didn't expect they were, but if Billy would have ordered them to, they probably would have.
Is that the way it was in the household, that if Billy ordered something done, it got done?
Yes,
Is that the way it was with your Uncle Lonnie? If Uncle Lonnie was ordered to do something by Billy Barger, it got done?
yes, he would do it.
And was it true of Doug Stangeland also? If Billy Barger said to Doug Stangeland, do something, it got done?
Yes,
When Billy Barger would speak, did he raise his voice to people?
yes,
Were you ever made aware that Billy Barger would threaten to kill people because he's killed many people before?
yes,
Remember a number?
no,
In the hundreds?
I don't recall the number.
Were you afraid of Billy Barger?
Yes,
You ever hear Billy Barger threaten Kim Hunter?
the only time I ever heard Mr. Barger threaten Kim Hunter is when he told me he wanted me to kill him.
And that conversation was that if she left him at any time, the thing that Hell's Angels do is you kill them, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to kill him.
And he told you to do that.
Yes,
Never had to do that though, am I
no,
correct?
he said if I didn't do it, then he was going to kill me.
Did you ever see Billy Barger shoot anybody?
No,
Did you ever see Billy Barger beat anybody up?
no,
Fair to say that Billy had people doing his work for him?
yes.
Do you know why you worked for him all those months for no money? Did things for him that when he was asking you to do them? Do you know why you did that?
I did it because that's what was asked of me.
Was it because you were all excited about becoming a Hell's Angel and therefore Billy could make that happen for you and that's why you would do anything for him?
Yes,
Do you ever threaten your family?
he said if I didn't do everything he said, that there would be harm coming to my family.
What did you believe the harm would be?
That he'd have my family killed.
So it wasn't just being a Hell's Angel that excited you, it was that you were intimidated or threatened?
Yeah,
And you had a pretty close relationship with your mom and your family, correct?
yes.
And your dad passed away in 2012, I think you said?
September 17th, 2012.
Sorry to hear that. You said Billy Barger, I assume knew where your family lived?
Yes,
Had he ever come there to pick you up at your home?
yes, him and Kimberly.
That's where your mom and your dad and your brothers, sisters, whatever?
It was where my mother, my father, my niece, and her half-sister
Excellent.
was with.
Did you ever hear Billy Barger in your presence threaten to kill Doug Stangeland?
No,
Did you ever hear him threaten to kill in your presence Lonnie Swartz?
no,
When you were on your way back from New Jersey, there were communications that were going on between Billy Barger and the other people in the car with you, correct?
yes,
Were any of those communications with Billy Barger to to you directly?
No.
They would have been to Doug Stangeland and Lonnie Swarns?
Yes.
Those communications were mostly text messages
Yes, and emails
and emails. And how many emails being received?
on the phone.
I see. So Doug Stangeland had a phone, you had a phone, Lonnie had a phone, correct?
Yes.
And with regard to the messages, did you get to read any of them?
On Mr. Stangeland's phone, I was the one sending the messages while he was driving. He was having me or saying what he wanted written down, and I was sending for him.
Do you recall messages coming on the phone while you were receiving them for Mr. Stangeland that were alleged to have come from Sonny Barger?
Yes.
And do you remember him being referred to as the chief?
Yes.
When you were proceeding along from Newton, New Jersey on your way back to Missouri, sooner or later you determined that you were going back to Nevada, it sounded like. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sorry. When you got to Lake Ozark, was it Lake of the Ozarks or Lake Ozark?
Lake of the Ozarks.
Okay. When you got to Lake of the Ozarks, you had been towed there by a good Samaritan person who took you with his van and put a strap or a tow bar or something on and towed the car back into this convenience store, correct?
Yes.
And dropped it off there, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you got there, the vehicle hadn't been running for some period of time, I assume.
No.
And the windows frosted up inside?
Yes.
When you got to that location, at some point in time, you said that you and Lonnie got out and went into the convenience store. Were there ever times when three of you were out of the car?
No.
What about when Doug was under the hood or Lonnie was under the hood?
Lonnie was never under the hood.
I see.
Lonnie was inside. I was in the car when Mr. Stangeland wasn't.
Trying to shoot the ether in the carburetor or whatever it was to get it started?
Yes.
Who bought the ether and the dry gas and things to try to get it started?
Mr. Stangeland.
Did he then get out of the car and go into the store to buy them?
Yes.
And where were you at that time?
I was in the car.
So you stayed with Mr. Mueller.
Yes.
And where were you in the car?
I was in the front seat.
So Mr. Mueller's in the back seat, behind the driver's seat, and you're in the front seat.
In the front passenger side.
And at some point in time, Doug Stangeland returns to the car, goes into the driver's seat, and you get out,
Yes.
and you go back, you go in the store where Uncle Lonnie is.
Yes.
And Doug Stangeland at that point in time is in the car, and you look outside and you see Mr. Mueller running across the parking lot of the convenience store, correct?
Yes, he ran across the parking lot and got in another guy's van.
Okay, and at that point in time, do you recollect that it was perhaps a white SUV?
No.
No? It was parked at the
It was parked
pumps?
at the gas pump.
Was it parked at the gas pumps closest to the entryway into the store?
Yes.
And was the person there pumping gas, as you recollect?
Yeah, he was pumping gas, telling Mr. Mueller to get out of his vehicle,
And which side of the vehicle did Mr. Mueller get into?
the driver's side.
And at some point, did you see that individual hit Mr. Mueller with a squeegee or a windshield cleaner thing?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. And you and Lonnie came out of the store at that point in time, correct?
Yes.
Now, where was Mr. Stangeland at that point in time?
He was on his way over towards the vehicle.
Toward the vehicle that was parked at the top?
Yeah, that Mr. Mueller was in.
Okay. And Mr. Mueller was running, correct?
Yes.
At that point. And who chased Mr. Mueller at that point in time?
At that point in time, it was Mr. Stangeland going after him.
I see. And do you recall that Mr. Stangeland actually grabbed him and put hands on him at some point?
No, I remember He tripped in the parking lot.
Doug Stangeland tripped in the parking lot.
Yes.
And where was that in relation to the gas pumps?
It was about maybe halfway between where the car was parked and the gas pumps.
And at that point when that happened, that was the second time that he had tripped during this journey, am I correct?
I didn't see him trip the first time.
That would have been back in the parking lot that you were told.
Yes.
When Mr. Stangeland tripped, I guess that slowed him up in chasing Mr. Mueller, correct?
Yes.
And who ultimately got hold of Mr. Mueller and put their hands on him?
My uncle.
And where were you when that happened?
I was following him.
And do you have a recollection that there was a car wash there?
No.
Okay. When you followed your uncle down to where Mr. Mueller was, did you see your uncle actually grab Mr. Mueller?
Yes, he grabbed Mr. Mueller, and at that time, Mr. Stangeland was there too, and helped my uncle drag Mr. Mueller back towards the car.
I see. How far would you say they had to drag him to get into the car?
From about me to the jury box.
Okay. And you've never seen the video that was played of what happened in the parking lot, am I correct?
No.
Who put him in the car?
He didn't get back in the car.
So in no time when he got back to the car, was he actually ever again in the car?
No.
Where was he?
He was outside the car. Because when I opened the door, he kicked the shut.
Okay. So you opened the door for him to get into the car and he kicked it shut.
Yes.
And at that point, what did you do?
I tried to open the door again.
And what did he do?
Yeah, he was struggling with my uncle. That's when my uncle hit him again.
And do you recollect, did your uncle hit him with an instrument or an implement or did
Hit
he?
him with his fist.
Fist, okay. Now your uncle already had a broken hand, didn't he?
Yes.
And he had broke his hand back in the parking lot in New Jersey when he hit him. Is that
Yes.
correct?
My recollection, yes.
You said that in one of your statements, didn't you?
Yes.
That wasn't untrue, was it?
No, that's what he said. He said he broke his hand.
Did you ever see Mr. Stangeland punch or kick or hit Mr. Mueller in the parking lot at the convenience store?
No.
Did you ever see Mr. Stangeland ever punch or hit Mr. Mueller?
No, that's why he's the least violent in this whole case.
I see. Did you ever see Mr. Stangeland draw a weapon at any time while you were traveling in the car? A handgun?
His gun was in the center console and never left it.
So when you left Missouri, you went in there and that's where it was when you got arrested, right?
Yes. The only time it came out was when we stayed in the hotel.
I see. You said Mr. Stangeland had a nickname called Bender,
Yes.
and you had a nickname Cue Ball.
Yes.
And Billy Barger was called Brutal, correct?
Yes.
And are these the individuals who had those nicknames?
Yes.
You said that Derek in the picture wearing, I guess that's a Hell's Angel shirt, right?
Yes.
He didn't have a nickname that Mr. Stangeland used. Only the other people in the house used it.
I never heard Mr. Stangeland use it.
Did you ever hear Billy Barger refer to himself as Monk Barger?
No.
Ever hear him refer to himself as an ambassador?
No.
So here you are, you watch Mr. Mueller break away from Lonnie Swarns, And he goes into the store, correct?
Yes,
And there's a lady there calling the cops. There's a cashier calling the cops.
yes,
Another guy, an older guy in there calling the cops, right?
yes.
And throw your hands up in the air and say, I guess they got me, right?
I walked over to the sidewalk next to the gas station, sat down.
What did Mr. Stangeland do?
He stood next to the car.
He didn't run away, did he?
No,
You didn't run away.
no,
You waited for the police to come?
yes,
You knew they were coming.
yes.
Now, was Billy Barger on his way there at that point in time?
Yeah, he was supposed to be, he was supposed to be there. The last time that anyone talked to him, he said he was a mile down the road at a gas station.
And at that point, he was coming to fetch
He was
Jeffrey Muller?
coming to retrieve Mr. Muller.
Okay. He didn't say he was coming there to help you get your car started.
No,
He didn't say he was gonna pick the three of you up plus Mr. Muller and bring you back to Nevada, did he?
he said me and Doug were supposed to stay with the car, and him and my Uncle Lonnie were going to take Mr. Muller back.
After the Scammell home invasion, you indicated that Billy Barger made a statement that that he was very upset because you was not supposed to leave live witnesses. I think that's what you said.
Yes,
And did you ever make that statement any other time?
it was just like, it was that night, it's the first time I heard it.
Doug Stangeland didn't say that, did he?
No,
And back when that disagreement occurred between you and Billy that led to you being hung over the railing, that was all over Billy's allegation that you had caused an argument between he and Kim, correct?
yes,
Was that typical that Billy blamed everyone else for everything?
yes.
When you came back to New Jersey with Lonnie and Stangeland, there wasn't any talk about a rental car at that point in time, was there?
No,
And Billy was pretty upset over the failure of the time before when Lonnie and Mr. Stangeland had come to New Jersey for Jeff Muller, am I correct?
yeah, because he said it was a waste of money.
And were you made aware that Doug Stangeland was told that he was going to pay for this trip back?
Yeah, he was going to pay for the one in January,
And who told him that?
Mr. Barger.
I heard you talk about a number that you thought you were going to get $360,000. Lonnie would get the same, and Doug Stangeland would get the same.
Yes,
That's over $1 million. Am I
yes.
correct? Were you ever told how much Billy Barger expected to get?
No,
Didn't Doug Stangeland tell you that you shouldn't expect to get any money? That it was
No.
all going to go to Bill?
no,
No? Did anyone ever tell you were going to get $360,000?
the only person that mentioned money was Billy. He said we were each going to get roughly around $360,000.
Did he ever tell you how much it was that was going to be collected?
No, he said just however much we could get past the 500,000 that was owed to Mr. Slates.
Who supplied the zip ties to put on Mr. Muller's wrists and legs?
They were purchased at a utility store at Home Depot in Ohio.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, they were purchased at a Home Depot in Ohio?
Yes.
Take a drink. Trying to get through you. Who purchased them?
Mr. Stangeland.
Okay. And who put them on Mr. Muller?
I did.
And you would have been in the front seat leaning over into the back seat in order to do that?
I did that before the door was shut. When he got in the car.
Back in New Jersey?
Back in Newton.
I see. So when you went driving out toward the Delaware Water Gap and across Pennsylvania on Route 80, he was already zip tied at that point?
Yes.
Did you ever hear anyone threaten Mr. Muller with a gun, that if he didn't put his head down, he would possibly get shot?
The only thing that was out was a stun gun.
Did you ever see Lonnie Swartz put a gun to Mr. Muller's head?
No, because I really wasn't looking in the back seat.
Do you remember going through the toll at the Delaware Water Gap?
Yes.
Do you remember whether Doug Stangeland paid a toll?
Yes.
The answer is yes, he paid one.
He paid the toll.
Got to put the window down and do that?
Yes.
Person there, or was it a pay
There was a
automatic?
person there.
And Mr. Muller, Jeffrey Muller, was in the back seat.
Yes. With his head down.
Was he covered with anything?
The only thing he had was a black ski mask on backwards.
You were the one that was called upon to look at Mr. Muller's computer and to determine financial records, as I understand it, correct?
Yes.
Would that mean that you were the more computer savvy, or whatever the word would be, of the group that was there?
Yeah, I knew how to use a computer.
What kind of computer was it?
It was a laptop.
Had QuickBooks on it, as I understand?
Yes.
You knew QuickBooks?
No.
I know you testified that you made a determination that all he had was inventory.
Yes, because that was all that was in there, in the file for his business.
Now, when you left Missouri to come and get him on any of the trips, were you provided with information about him and where he possibly resided?
The information that we had the first trip, that he had a business, like Jeffrey Muller had a business in Baltimore.
And who provided you with that information?
Mr. Barton.
Were you given any written documents concerning that?
There was printouts off the computer, a background check.
And were you present when those printouts were generated?
I was in the house, but I wasn't in the same room.
And you didn't participate in generating them?
No.
Do you have a recollection of Doug Stangeland at some point in time back in the parking lot of the convenience store in Lake of the Ozarks, putting his hands up and saying, that's it, it's over, I quit, anything like that?
No.
You get a concurrent sentence with the 18 years that you got out in Missouri for the home invasion?
Yes.
So whatever you serve in New Jersey covers what you serve out there?
Yes.
Billy Barger generally an evil person?
He's manipulated.
Is there anything that he wouldn't do?
Not if he really wanted something.
He would usually use other people to do misdeeds, right?
Yes.
The fact that you're back here in New Jersey, I'm sure is a hardship to you because your family's still in Missouri, I assume?
Yes.
And you're here because you gave a statement early on about your involvement in this incident, correct?
Yes.
So it wasn't something that was fabricated at some later date after you got to talk to a lawyer or talk to somebody, correct?
No.
Right after you were arrested, you were taken to the Vernon County Sheriff's,
No, we were taken to Miller County.
Miller County first, okay. Did you give a statement in Miller County?
No.
You lawyered up at that point, right?
I said I wasn't, when they took me out to talk to me, when New Jersey took me out to talk to me, I said I wasn't gonna talk unless I had an attorney present.
That was the right thing to do, right?
Yes.
And then later you did talk, am I
Yes.
correct? That was in Vernon County?
Sheriff, two police officers came from Vernon County to Miller County Jail, talked to me. That's how I got moved back to Vernon County.
And you've always been cooperative in this particular case, am I correct?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, hasn't Doug Stangeland been cooperative with this case also?
Yes.
Nobody forced you to testify here today, did they?
No.
I didn't pry anything out of you, did I?
No.
And was your testimony truthful today?
Yes.
With regard to your testimony, you and I have never met before today, am I correct?
No.
And I never spoke to you on the phone, sent you a letter, or anything of that sort, correct?
No.
So I certainly didn't affect you in your testimony that you gave today, correct?
No.
When did you first meet Doug Stangeland?
That would have been before September. And maybe, I'm not sure the actual date, but I met him at one of his warehouses where he had his vending machines and he was cleaning it out. And we took old machines that didn't work and loaded them onto a trailer for scrap.
So would it be fair to say that you didn't know him before 2009?
No.
When you lived in his house, where did you live in the house?
Downstairs.
Is that-
And on a bed that was out in the open.
Okay. The basement?
Yeah, it was a fully furnished basement, finished basement.
Anybody else live in the basement or in that lower fully furnished area?
Mr. Stang?
Did the house have a master bedroom?
Yes.
Who lived in a master bedroom when you were there?
Billy and Kim.
And where did Doug Stangeland's son live when he would be there?
He was in the same room with Doug.
Down in the finished basement.
Yes.
Do you know how it came about that Doug Stangeland no longer was using the master bedroom himself?
No, that was all before I even showed up there.
I have nothing further, Judge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Morrison, just asked you a few minutes ago if this defendant had been cooperative with the police throughout the investigation. When you were in Missouri, did this man right here, did he ask you to lie to the police for you and for him?
Yes.
He did. Tell us about that.
It was when we were together in Vernon County. He said, we're just gonna say that we're gonna let Mr. Mueller go, that we discussed about letting Mr. Mueller go, and blame it on my uncle.
So you're gonna blame it all on your uncle, and that you guys let Jeff Mueller go. And was that true or not true?
No.
Whose idea was it to lie?
Mr.
Yes.
Stangeland.
And in fact, did you do that?
Yes.
At whose request?
It was after we already done talked about it. With when me and Mr. Stangeland discussed it, then I went ahead and proceeded to state that.
How was it that you guys were able to talk to each other when you were, did they keep you separated?
No, Vernon County kept us in the same dorm.
Same dorm, so you were able to talk.
And after a while, I moved out of the dorm.
Mr. Morrison asked you why you just didn't, or actually he pointed out that you didn't run away when you were at the gas station in Lake of the Ozarks. And that Lonnie didn't run away, and that Doug didn't run away. Why didn't you run away?
Because there's no point in running.
Why was there no point in running? Well, let me ask you a question. What was this gas station, was it fairly busy at the time? Were there people coming and going?
It wasn't really busy, but there was people there.
And people basically seeing
Yes.
what had happened, what was going on?
And it was on camera.
And you realized that there were surveillance cameras, right?
Yes.
The car that was broken down and couldn't be moved, would that car have been linked back to any one of you guys?
Yeah, Mr. Stanley.
It was registered to him, right?
Yes.
So when Mr. Mueller broke free, you guys were caught in Metro?
Yes.
There was no getting out of this at that point.
No.
Is that the reason you didn't run?
Yes.
With regard to Mr. Barger living up in the master bedroom, do you know if that had anything to do with his claimed illness, his cancer, and a claim that he couldn't walk up and down the steps?
Yeah, he would claim he was too weak to be going up and down the stairs.
I want to ask you a few questions about this motorcycle club that you guys all joined. It was the Hells Angels motorcycle club, correct?
Yes.
And you knew something about the Hells Angels. Is that accurate?
Yes.
It's a club that's fairly well known, I think, for everyone.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that that is a club that uses violence and intimidation regularly to do their business?
Yes.
You voluntarily joined it?
Yes.
I think you testified that he was proud to be a part of it. Is that true?
Yes.
Would you expect that the person who is the head of a club that uses violence and intimidation to do their business, that they may in fact at times use intimidation to get their club members to do their business?
Yes.
That's something you all knew going into it, correct? And in fact, you had to deal with orders and intimidation at times, not just from Billy Barger, but also from Doug Stangeland and Lonnie Swartz.
Yes.
They're the two that hung you over the rail, aren't they?
Yes.
You indicated also, I believe, when Mr. Morrison was questioning you, that there was some text messaging that was going on, correct?
Yes.
That you were doing it, but you were basically doing it on behalf of Mr. Stanley.
Yes.
Were those text messages deleted?
All text messages were deleted.
Okay. And was that Mr. Barger telling you to do that?
Yes.
I think you indicated that this defendant's gun, Mr. Stangeland, that is, was in the center console of the vehicle,
Yes.
and I just want to hold this up for you. Are you sure that this is it?
Yes.
Okay. There's no question in your mind.
No.
Did this gun belong to him?
Yes.
Did he know it was in the center console?
Yes.
You testified, sir, that at no time did Mr. Stangeland actually strike or kick Jeff Muller, correct?
Yes.
Now, he did shoot Charles Smell in the hand, right?
Yes.
Testified to that. All three of you were armed. Was he there also in the event that he was needed? In other words, did he know that some force would be used against Mr. Muller? Whether it was him doing it or somebody else?
Yes.
And that was the purpose of having the stun gun?
Yes.
At any time, did he say to you, hey, not so rough with Jeff, we don't want to hurt him? You ever say that?
No.
Ever ask you to take it easy with him?
No.
Would you say that the kidnapping, in essence, went according to plan?
Yes.
Up until, of course, Ledger Jones.
Yes.
He testified also that Mr. Muller was going to be, in essence, shot and then drowned in a river, right, in Clearfield, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Who was the person that was driving Jeff Muller to that fate?
Mr. Stangeland.
After the Clearfield, Pennsylvania plan sort of fell through, and you were heading back to Missouri, what did you think was going to happen to Jeff Muller back in Missouri? How did you reach your destination?
He was going to be killed.
And who was driving him to that fate?
At the time, it was still God.
Mr. Morrison talked about some of the threats and intimidation that you experienced. Before you pled guilty, did you consider that with your attorney?
Yes.
Did you speak to him about all possible defenses?
Yes.
And you entered a plea anyway?
Yes.
How come?
Because I was guilty.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yes, Judge. Mr. Wadel, in June of 2010, you gave a statement in which it included that Mr. Stangeland fell asleep and that enabled Mr. Muller to get out of the car, right?
Yes.
And now in 2015, you come into this courtroom and you tell us that that was not true, that didn't happen that way.
Yes.
Now, between June of 2010 and coming into this courtroom, have you had an opportunity to meet with the prosecutor's representatives at other times?
I've met him 3 times before coming here.
And did you meet him out in Missouri?
No.
Did you meet him here at the Morris County Jail?
Yes, 3 times.
And would that be 3 times just prior to today?
First, back on the 3/30, the March 30th.
March 30th of this year?
And once last Friday and yesterday.
I see. Now, when was the first time that you told anybody, including Mr. Mueller, that that statement in that particular transcript was a lie?
Told him yesterday.
Yesterday.
I had not talked to him about the case before that.
You didn't want to be here to testify, correct?
No,
And the reason you don't want to be here to testify is because you're locked up in the New Jersey State Prison, correct?
yes,
And you felt that if you came here and testified, you would look like a snitch to everyone. Isn't that true?
yes,
And that's the whole motivation as to why you don't want to be here.
yes. I don't want to be here because I claim responsibility for what I did. And all I wanted to do was my time.
So you came here and you testified. You met with Mr. Mueller 3 times before you came here. Yesterday, you tell him that that statement is incorrect.
Yes,
And you didn't want people to know that maybe you and Mr. Stangeland let Mr. Mueller go? You didn't want people to know that?
why should I hide behind a lie?
I see. You weren't in the car when Mr. Stangeland was in the car with Mr. Mueller and he got out of the car, correct?
No,
And you don't know whether or not Mr. Stangeland faked falling asleep in order for Mr. Mueller to get away, am I correct?
no,
And wasn't there discussion at some points in time between Newton, New Jersey, and getting out to Missouri about, we've got the wrong guy, why don't we let him go?
there was only one discussion saying that it was probably the wrong guy, but we couldn't let him go.
And that message was conveyed to Billy Barger, wasn't it? Let him go?
Yes,
And you probably were the one that conveyed the message to Barger?
yes,
And at that point in time, Barger told you, no, you can't let him go, right?
yes,
Why did he tell you you couldn't let him go?
because he's seen our faces. And that it can't be the wrong person, that like it has to be the right person.
You really believed it was the wrong guy, though, right? At that point.
Yes,
And Mr. Stangeland and you talked about it being the wrong guy, didn't you?
it was voiced in the car, yes,
And you were on his phone texting or emailing Billy Barger about this inquiry about letting him go, correct?
I was on his phone because he was driving, yes.
Now, in the house that Mr. Stangeland owned in Nevada,
Yes,
when you come into the house, there was a master bedroom on the main floor.
it was at the back of the house, yes.
Were there any other bedrooms on that level?
Yes, there was 2 more,
And bathrooms on that level, correct?
yes.
And then below it was the room that you ended up in.
I was out in the open. I wasn't in a room.
Okay. Out in the open, in what sense?
It was not in a room. It was out in like a living space.
I see. And it was a bed.
Yes, there was a bed.
Were you given a place to put your personal belongings?
They were just right there in a basket, right next to the bed.
And Mr. Stangeland lived under similar conditions, but in the actual room?
He lived in a room. There was 2 rooms down there. He lived in a room that had a bathroom off in it. And there was another smaller room that Kim had her son stay in.
So on the main level, Billy Barger could have lived in one of the other 2 bedrooms, correct?
Yes,
Did anyone ever tell you that the Scammell shooting was an accident?
it was claimed that when the gun jerked up, that it just went off.
So you were told that?
Yes, I did hear that.
You're not affected by drugs at this point in time or alcohol, correct?
I've been smoking
Cigarettes?
weed.
Since you've been locked up?
No.
I didn't think so. So before you got arrested, you were smoking some weed?
Yes.
Okay. Since you got arrested, you're not under the influence of any drugs or alcohol, correct?
No. The only medication I take is for high blood pressure and cholesterol.
I see. Get that from being in prison and the diet you have?
Well, high blood pressure and high cholesterol runs in my family.
I see. That does it further, Judge.
Nothing else, Judge.
Very good. It is 12:30, ladies and